Kia ora and welcome to Wahine, a podcast celebrating wahine in business who are carving their own path with intention, courage and vision. This is a space for honest kōrero about building a business that reflects your identity, your values and the legacy you're creating. I'm your host, Sandra Julian, business coach, mentor and wahine Māori. In each episode, I sit down with wahine entrepreneurs and leaders to explore the real stories behind their success, the lived experiences, the cultural connections, and the bold leadership that shape who they are not only in business, but in life. This isn't hustle culture. This is wahine legacy leadership. Tēnā koe te tuahine, Nartarsha. Nau mai hara mai ki te hōtaka Business Your Way. Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. It's such an honour to have you here, wahine to wahine, Indigenous to Indigenous. But before we dive into the conversation, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you, acknowledge your whakapapa and the lands that you stand on. I acknowledge your connection to country, your ancestors, your elders, past and present, and the strength of your cultural lineage that flows through the powerful work that you do today, which everyone is soon going to find out about. I feel deeply grateful to share this space with you and to uplift the voices of Indigenous women in business. Wahine who are not only building businesses, but who are reshaping narratives, reclaiming space, and leading with heart and purpose. So thank you so much for saying yes to this interview or this conversation and sharing your journey with us. So to get us started, I'm going to hand over to you. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, who you are, who you serve, and what you do to make your moolah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sandra, for a wonderful way to land and arrive with that acknowledgement, and just to hear language be spoken from like one land and culture and woman to another. So I just want to say thank you so much for that acknowledgement. It was really beautiful. So before I start more about myself, Galinyan Ganya, Neana Kakayao Yumbina Waka, Neana Kayan Yumbina, Yakurumja, Dumanya Gumaga Dumaga, Ithawaka Nida Waman Daman Emalan. Mubangara Boma in and Yan Waka, Garden Yakurumja, Butanadana. Nya, Nartarsha Navanaga-Bamblett. Hello, beautiful friends. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're gathering on. I would like to pay my respects to the elders who have come before us, respecting all of the lands on which we see, and maybe take pleasure in all of the lands. And that continues on to the waterways, skies, and all living things and creatures, great and small, acknowledging that culture is a living and existing thing, and how we live our life today as women, especially within our purpose and business, which what brings us to this conversation. So sharing my language from my mother country of where I come from in Yori language, as a proud First Nations woman. I live here in Naarm, and we want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm connecting and speaking to you from, to have these respectful, connective conversations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as I said, my name's Nartarsha. A little bit about me. I am a mum of 2 boys and 1 on the way. And I've been doing business for 10 years now. And the business that I'm doing, I believe, found me, or I fell into the business just from following my life's purpose, soul's purpose, the thing that fully alivens me. And when I am in service with what I do, it just fills my heart. It energizes me, it enlightens me, and it brings me so much joy with what I do. So I've been doing it, I think, for longer than I was in business. And that's just sharing culture and connection through song and dance, which is how it started with what I do and how I make my money. And I found out that it was something that was of demand. People wanted it. People wanted to feel that connection that I have been cultivating all my life and creating for me in my home, for my family. And I realized that there was a gift within that. And the gift that I had was communication, and to speak that through
Mm.
words and language that other people could resonate, relate to, and understand, and, you know, challenge their perspectives and perceptions on how they see themselves and connect to the deeper world around them. So that's what I do.
Ah, that's beautiful. I love that you feel it's your sole purpose, and you were doing this way before it became a business. So it sounds like it's just been a natural extension of who you are and what you've always done.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. So when was that point? Because I love backstories and how people got to where they are today. So at what point did you kind of go, oh, maybe I should be turning this that I have always done, that I do, that comes so naturally, into a business?
I always had a passion for connection. And the thing that I could connect easiest with people was movement, and through dance and through music and how it is connected. And that didn't have any race or age or ability connected to
Mm.
it. I've seen that expression take place from babies who can't talk to elders who, you know, are in wheelchairs, to all abilities of people that are, you know, deaf and blind. And it was something that showed me a space or a gap that I think people weren't seeing. And it's just been something that I've shared within my home, my family. We love music and dancing, and me and my brother would find ourselves in the lounge rooms creating performances for various, you know, family occasions, whether they ask for it or not. And I seen how it connected to children and the next generation. And then I found myself pregnant at 19, and my life was changing. I went through this transformative time in my life as a woman into a mother, and I wanted to do something that was purposeful and meaningful for the children that was being raised in his generation and, you know, coming after me. So that's what I did. That was the moment that I said, there's something here that can be of service. And I'd encourage some other young people to give them a bit of life and purpose and meaning and money in their pockets, you know, this self-determination of feeling good about giving back through their time and energy. And what happened was, you know, money could go back into them, and they could feel good about what they've earned. And it wasn't until 6 kind of years doing that in where I was on the journey of self-discovery of myself,
Mm.
my own journey of who I am and who I want to be and who I'm becoming. And somebody said, so is this what you do? You know, is this a business? And, you know, like, and I kept hearing this word. I was really stepping into this queen energy and this queen vibe, you know, showing up on the social media through COVID time, where it really empowered us to deepen our connections to the
Mm.
world. And somebody was like, is this like you're a queen and is this what you do? And I just had done it all my life, you know, acknowledging. And then it just became queen acknowledgements. And 4 years on, 5 years on, it's just grown and grown and grown.
That's amazing. And what does it look like now? Like, compared to how it came into being, what does it look like now in terms of how people engage you, what they engage you for? Yeah, the type of work that you are doing with your
Yeah.
client.
It's professional now. I'm
Yeah.
like a real boss and loving every moment of how that feels and what that looks like and means to me, and how I present myself as a professional businesswoman to the world and in spaces of other professional business people. And the services have expanded, and what I have to offer has grown, and financially it's just expanded, and it has every year since, knowing that my knowledge and my creations are worth something and are of value and are of demand to people. They want this, and I have something that I can give to them that they want and more so need. And where it's at now, if I was to know that this was going to be my life, I probably wouldn't have believed it. I feel like I'm dream. I have asked for these various ways of living and experiencing life and making money and supporting myself and my family. And it feels pretty good. Pretty, pretty amazing. I sometimes have to pinch myself of just how deeply how grateful I am for the life that I've worked hard for and has, not come easy, but that I know that I've given to myself. And that's a great feeling when you know that you've gone out there and given it to yourself. And I hope to inspire others to live and do that for themselves by watching and seeing my journey live out.
Nice. How do you think that's been, I don't want to say affected because that's not the right word, but how do you think the times that we live in now have influenced that journey in terms of reclamation? And, I see Australia, going through this reconciliation period. Not that I know too much about that, because I've been so focused on what's going on over this side of the ditch and where we are at as a people in this day and age. And I just said to somebody the other day, it's like it feels like we are coming of age with the economic impact that we are now having with the recent release of the economic impact report, Te Ohanga. So it feels like Māori are now at the table because we now have the means to stand on our own, to be there because of the journey that we've been taking over the last 50 years. So I'm interested to hear, about the work that you do and how that may or may not have been influenced by the Indigenous journey that Australia is going through with the reconciliation.
Yeah, it's a big one, and it's really beautiful to share, this kind of similarity, or, there's a understanding of the journey, in our own ways and rights. And for us as, over here in Australia, it's been a long journey. You think about where it's come from day one colonization 230 years ago. And even in my short life of 30 years, it's new things have become possible. And I remember as a young girl not seeing myself in these spaces that were represented of power, of reclamation, of strength, and definitely not self-determined and self-funding, in this way of business owners and entrepreneurship and, creating empires of companies that allow this give back in this way. And it's only been in the last 10 years that I've been on this journey myself that I've seen things change, and I have seen the way the world, my world, in this place that I live, people on an individual, societal, and structure and systems of organizations and businesses and companies are changing, and they're understanding and wanting to understand the meaning of reconciliation. And to further that, they're wanting to take meaningful action. They're wanting to walk what reconciliation is. And it's been a wonderful journey to explore and have people that I've met and have met me along the way, and I get to walk with, as a continuous journey. And yeah, I'm grateful for the time that we're in, and I'm also excited for the time that's still yet to come, because I know that there's still more work to be done, and I'm here for it. But I'm also really grateful for the work that has been done prior. First Nations people, that their voices, have been echoed through, and their presence and their stance and their marches and their, activism, and the tireless work that the men and women have done before me have really propelled my generation into this position.
Nice. Can I ask you, when I first came across you and your work, I was like, I really need to talk to Nartarsha. You spoke to me culturally and spiritually, and I'm like, I need to have a conversation with this girl, So how would you say that you weave your cultural integrity into your business in a way that honors who you are and your heritage, but also working in, if I used your own terms, this professional world? How do you align those two things?
There's been a personal internalized journey that I've had to be on in accepting this is the life that I want for myself. And to do so, there has to be some changes that I have to make in how I present myself, in a way that I've got to learn about professionalism, and I've got to learn to, level up in ways that people are listening to what I have to say and are taking my presence serious. That I mean business when I show up. But I have never lost the essence of who I am and where I come from. And it humbles me when I think that I come from the oldest living continuous culture on the planet. And I never get too big for my shoes, because I remember the people that have come before me and the blessings that I have as a First Nations woman is this deep cultural connection to country. And the world is so big, and I really know my place as a small part in what I get to experience in life. But I know that the small part that I play can have really big and meaningful impact in my time. And I know that we're only here for a short time, we grasp 60,000, years. We're only here for a very short time. And I have just really had to stay true to myself, and through the stories of my people that have come before me, and those painful stories of, the stolen generation that lives in my family lines, my grandmothers, and the sacrifices that people have had to make to integrate into what Australia is today, how that's impacted the way we live and do things. I am mindful that culture is still here and still exists. And I've shown up on stage with my baby, because to me, that is what I value. That is what is culturally been before. And those who align with that, I'll connect with. And those who don't, there's a respect for the authenticity. And I also know when to switch it up and be professional and put the, boss jacket on. And I also know that who I am at the core doesn't ever leave me.
Love that, because I think that's where we can all struggle at times. It's like, how do I remain true to who I am and my cultural beliefs, and and still operate in a world where I'm trading time for dollars or services for dollars in a business environment. And also knowing that I'm not for everybody.
Mhm.
Sometimes that can be a hard journey to travel. And sometimes you can second guess yourself and you can think about just parking that at the door for a moment while I go do this. I think
Mm.
everyone, who wants to operate their business in a way that stays true to who they are comes across that at some point in time in the journey. But, my experience is that things never go well when you don't fully take who you are and everything that you are into every situation. So, yeah, I love how the way that you think about who you are and how you show up, especially when what you do is so visible. When you are standing on stage delivering a keynote speech or when you are facilitating is such a visible place to
Yeah.
be, and yet you're showing up fully as yourself. So that's so beautiful and such a role model.
Yeah, and I would just say what I say and how I talk and present, the language stays the same. Whether
Mm,
I'm in my house with people, whether I'm on social media, whether I'm on stage, or whether I'm in a, group facilitating, I don't change. And that's because I've had to fully understand and get really clear with what are my values and to keep myself accountable and in integrity with these values. I have to, what you do out there, you have to do inside and behind closed doors. And what you do behind closed doors, is that aligning to what you're saying and speaking out in the world?
So, what are some of the challenges that come with running, such a culturally soul-led business? What are some of the significant ones that you've faced in your journey?
That there's no real guideline. You're not many other people to kind of share the journey experience with, or in the sense of comparison. You're kind of in a league on your own when it comes to your cultural knowledge and IP and how to position yourself, and with prices to what the services, and how to be a profitable business, and palatable and sellable, and think about these in business terms. That there was not many reference points that I had. There is more and more as time goes on, which I love. People are stepping into this space to share their self and their knowledge in a cultural way. So that's definitely been one of the biggest challenges. It's felt like a lonely journey a lot of the time. And I didn't come from money. The way we were in service was through cultural exchange. And this way has felt foreign for me. I'm
Mm,
the first in my family that have stepped into the world of business. So, it's very new to even my family, and, having these conversations, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, it's been new territory, and I've had to go through a lot of internal stuff to understand that money is okay to make and okay to have and okay to ask for. And that doesn't make me any type of person for
mm.
it. And I can have purpose and profit all at the same time.
I agree. We can, but that is a journey to get there because of that internal self chatter. Have you experienced any pushback from your family or extended family or others who see you making money from the cultural aspect?
I probably had more pushback from my own mob than I have externally. One, because I understand cultural protocols and ways of doing things in a cultural way that I always try to be mindful and respectful of, but I'm no expert. I feel like I'm a baby, in
Mm,
this world. 30 years of lived experience, and I'm gonna forever be learning. through the way I live. But that's, been a part of the challenge, is how to navigate these conversations when they're presented to you, and when somebody comes to you with cultural authority, how to engage in that. And I've learned more about myself through those challenging conversations, and to always be listening and learning, and how I do that in my facilitation and work as a service. I'm doing that also for myself in my own personal life. And then there's been family who have just been nothing but uplifting and supportive. And when there is a hard time, they're the ones who tell me, you know who you are and where you come from. And they remind me of that. There's ones that pick me up, and there's some that just, I guess, get concerned, about maybe the money and the profit, and if I'm exploiting it or appropriating it in whatever way that feels maybe misunderstood to them. But I think it really comes down to a conversation and connection, and people understanding what I'm here to do. And until they have that perspective and understanding of me, things kind of seem to, ground again. And I've just always been open to people to come to me and challenge me in different ways, because if I can face that in a cultural way, I don't think there's any conversation out there in the business world that can scare me.
Yeah. What a great way to think about it. Yeah, absolutely. When you can have the hard conversations with your own, then you can have a conversation with anybody.
That's right.
Yeah. So who are you surrounding yourself with in order to, make it not such a lonely place, being the first person in the family who's taken on a business and making her own way with the entrepreneur journey? How are you surrounding yourself with a support system?
Well, firstly, I have to be in a space of other women that are sharing, these human experiences as a woman, and the challenges of all the things life that I can connect and relate to and share openly, and I can be understood. Then there's people in the space that I always have something to learn from. So they're the ones that have walked the journey that I'm haven't yet taken, or that I'm on, and they have things that I can learn from, and that they're teaching me. So I have my teachers around me. I have some great Indigenous leaders that are out there doing it, and non-Indigenous people that are bringing different perspectives to me in how I show up. Because I remember I just surrounded myself by my mob, that I forgot that there was another way and lens and side to it. And have a beautiful woman who's been in my life, in my business very closely, and she has taught me a lot about myself and non-Indigenous Australia, and how I can keep expanding my mind and view. We call it the bird's eye view. How much more can I see? And one of the most important is I surround myself by the younger generation, especially my sisters. I have 2 younger sisters, 2 boys, and I need to make sure that I always see them. I always see them, when we drive, you see in your rearview mirror, always when I'm looking back, that they're there, because they're the ones who are watching me. And when I am being challenged, it's always a reminder to hold myself to account and in integrity with my values, even when stuff gets hard, that they're there. They're watching, they're watching what I'm doing. They're watching what I'm saying and how I'm acting. And it, always humbles me as the leader. There's people always there to remind you of your presence in their life. So that's been my people.
Professionally, and moving into the business, how has that business journey been? Confident in who you are and the culture that you bring into the world, and how you lead your businesses from the heart. Business is such a roller coaster ride in and of itself. How have you been navigating the business journey?
Lots of expensive lessons. Um, I've invested a lot of money in learning about business and coaches and getting advice and direction from mentors and, people in the different various fields. I try to do everything on my own and realize that that's not sustainable because it comes with very little sleep when you do. So, yes, I've invested a lot of money. Some were valuable and some I was really seeking validation of my worth and asking people to tell me about my business more than, I trusted my own intuition and decisions. And I have just kept showing up and pushing myself in professional spaces that I didn't know about, accounts. So I'm learning the world of accounts and numbers, and for the previous 8 years I didn't know nothing. And until I got smacked with a big, tax debt, and this is how you are running your business and what benefit and negative impact that it's having. So I had to learn some lessons, and some of them have been quite expensive, but I'm grateful for those ones because it's made me learn more about business. I haven't come from any professional qualifications of backgrounds, so it's all been trial and error and learning from mistakes, and they've been the biggest lessons as part of it. But finding the network of people that you need to help a business run, and the various informations of going from sole trade to trust to company, and I've taken that different journey and ventures of what that means and looks like, and feel like I'm in a place that's thriving, which is good.
Yeah, perfect. And that's eventually where we want to get to, is ensure that we've got a thriving business no matter how we get there, because that road can look different for everybody. But I think your journey is probably really common amongst business owners who don't come from a business background. We just know what we know and we're really good at what we do. And then we realize that it's in demand and we can actually support ourselves doing so. And then all of the business lessons come later. You said something just before that piqued my interest that I would like to dive into, but you tell me if you don't want to go here. And that was about seeking out, some professional services or help more for validation than anything else.
Yeah. Well, there's been a long journey of understanding my worth. And as a Black woman in this country, I know we've carried the labels of not being valued just in general, and, that our presence shouldn't be heard or seen. And I spent a lot of money and time looking outside of myself than I did inside of myself, and fully reclaiming the gift that I have and understanding that that is of value to people, and it is a valuable asset to my business as a service. And it's only been in the last couple of years in business and in life. I'm, mum of 2 now. My youngest is 2. And when you have these changes in life, I think I've valued time, and my time is of the essence. And I got to a point where I'm like, I think I've done enough looking outside and really grasping my worth and fully loving myself for all that I have and all that I am, and allowing people to treat me that way, and how I treat myself and speak of myself, and how I stand and talk and walk. How you respect yourself is how you show others to respect you. And that's been the biggest journey that I've learned in business.
And that's something that I don't hear a lot, which is why I was like, let me ask you this question, because I'm interested in all of the aspects of business that we don't talk about. All
Yeah.
of the self-doubt that creeps in, all of the validation sometimes that we seek, not that we need it, but we still do it. And then the internal work that we do to get past that challenge. So if you're happy to share this, can you
Mm.
tell me a bit about, like, what did that journey look like for you? You know, that journey of changing the way that you were thinking about yourself in
Yeah.
order to change the way others also thought about you.
Well, it kept me small for a very long time. It
Mm.
kept me a secret. It kept me hidden. I'd hid myself and my voice from others to truly see and hear me for what I had to say. And I had people in my life closest to me who knew me, most or the longest, that were telling me, like, you're amazing, you're a leader. And it was like water off a duck's back. I would like say yes, thank you, but it just wouldn't sink in. It wouldn't penetrate through the skin. And then I got myself in, a space probably more hyped up on energy and the vibe of the group, that I did something and you put something out there on socials, and I was like, well, we're in COVID. I'm probably not going to see people for a little while. So if, socials, I can filter what that, what people, the connections I have with people. And I just I stopped caring for a moment in the self-exploration of who I was becoming, and put myself out there and offered something and put a price to it. And then somebody paid for it. And I was like, oh, this actually works. And you kind of you feel a self gratification, in those moments and times. And then I did it again and again and again, and the price went up and the services changed, and I was exploring with that. And people then were telling me, you're amazing, and you've got this energy and this presence and a gift. And I remember the first time that I'd ran a workshop, and I just cried. I was
Mhm.
speechless, and I just cried from this overwhelming sense of gratitude, almost to the point that I didn't deserve it.
Wow.
And my partner just held me and he said, just just feel it, whatever's there, just be with that. Then I did my next workshop, and I had the same response from people telling me these things, and the feeling wasn't quite as strong. It was a little bit less of an overwhelming gratitude. I was grateful, but it didn't knock me off my feet. It actually made me feel a little bit taller. And I was
Mm.
like, wonder what this is. And as I realized, grasping what that was growth. That was me
Mm.
growing into my power and claiming my gift of what I have and the worth and value that people had seen in me. I was starting to fully believe it, until I got to this point where now I know I don't need people to tell me anymore. It's
No,
nice when they do, but
yeah,
when you
yeah.
get to a point of like, your stuff, you don't need the validation because you've got it,
Mm.
you know it. Yeah, that's a really nice place to be.
And did that look like that, self-realization, did that look like quiet moments? Did that look like talking with a coach? Did that look like journaling? Did that look like, what did that journey look like when you had these moments, that led you to your own self-belief?
All of it. I
Oh, yeah.
remember everyone left and I just sat there in awe, speechless, like, what just happened? And then I went home, in the car ride, and it was from that moment I've enjoyed my silence, because in the silence I am clear to hear what is present in me. And I've enjoyed silence the comfort of that ever since, because you hear yourself and feel yourself for what's really there. And then I remember the second workshop where the things felt different, and I was on a plane and I was looking out the window, literally with a bird's eye view, thinking, yeah, I just did that. I asked myself a different question this time. It was almost like a pinch me reality moment. The first time I was like, what did I just do? Or did I just do that? And the second time it's like, yeah, I just did that. And journaling has been a big part of my life, really reflecting on what's to be said without words. I think that's very powerful. And my partner has, not only been my life partner, but he's been on the business journey with me, seeing me grow and evolve, and probably telling me things that I didn't believe until, it took me some time down the track. And he's like, I've been telling you this for years. And just reflecting with him, because he sees it from the outside. And to talk to someone who you have this moment of unpacking and reflecting in ways that you have to tell them, articulate to them what's going on. It was really nice for me to receive those words myself. So there's been various ways in how this self-realization has come to me.
And it sounds like you have an amazingly supportive partner that you've had along this journey. Sometimes I see there are other dynamics that come into play when one partner grows and feels like one's outgrowing the other. So, just to hear you explain how that journey has happened for both of you and you've grown together from what I've just heard.
Yeah.
That's super special. Super special. Talk to me a little bit about how your services have evolved from that point of going, I just did that. Like, holy smokes, like, whoa. And then stepping into really the self-belief around what you are doing and capable of doing and the value. So then how has that evolved over the past few years in terms of what you offer and how that has been refined or changed based on maybe feedback or other things that you've seen needs changing over time?
Yeah, I think of myself as being a lifetime learner and devoted to learning. So me exploring my own connections to my culture and learning from other people that have been my teachers, I just love the way they present or facilitate or talk or connect people. So I'm always tuned in to how they're doing things and what reaction they're getting from people. And I've just learnt from that. Anywhere that I go, that I listen to somebody who is an expert in their field, whether that be studied or just personal lived knowledge and experience. And I've seen the way that captivates audiences, or, okay, they're traveling the world, they're making this amount of money, they've got this amount of seats in their auditoriums, and they're standing on these kinds of stages with these caliber of people. What puts them there? And I've just really studied those people and applied that to how I can continue to grow. And each session that I do, I say, oh, that was the best one. Oh, that was the best one. And if you don't feel like that in your business, that it's always growing or giving you something, or you're excited about what you've just done, yeah, it can become dull and it can become on autopilot. And I've also been there. I've also been autopilot, where I'm like, oh, doesn't feel exciting. And I've just learnt from the way that things have made me feel from other people as facilitators. And I went from one workshop that kind of all of my life experience I've collected, and every time I learn something new in every given moment, any given day, I add that to the toolbox, and then I just keep expanding how I connect, what questions I ask, what content I'm creating. And I'm always trying to think of ways I can be a creator to challenge people's perceptions and perspectives, bring a different view to it. So that's how workshop from number one
Mm.
has grown to hundreds.
Yeah. I hear that the questions that you're asking yourself, yes, you're challenging, status quo in how you show up, but I also hear the questions that you're asking yourself. As you are looking at people who you're admiring how they're showing up and where they're showing up, sometimes that can create jealousy. But I hear from you these questions, and they're questions of yourself to what do you need to do next to get closer to that person that you're admiring. Where did you learn to ask such smart questions of your own self?
I remember someone saying to me, to get the answers you want, you must ask the right questions that you need. I stopped focusing on the end result, the answers to it, and I started listening to the way people were asking the questions. And that's as simple as that. I'm tuned in. I'm an audio learner, and I listen to the way they say it, the tone, what words they choose to use. And people have explained, or described me as articulate. So I'm very mindful about what I say because I know what I say can leave an impression.
Mm.
And it's up to me what kind of impression or impact that I get to have. Words can be used as weapons. They are
Mhm.
powerful and deadly, and we need to be careful how we use them.
Which was, the what I noticed about you and the questions that you're asking yourself in certain situations with the acknowledgement that follows. So, I can see how that is showing up in your everyday, just how it's showing up in this conversation. What does legacy mean to you, and how do you hope Queen Acknowledgements continues to ripple into the world?
Legacy to me means that I've left my time and my place and people in a better place than I came into it. That means putting my children in a better position financially with opportunities and exposure. For example, what education, they have access to, and what different experiences they have as children. Do they get to travel the world? Do they try all the different sports and, arts and expressions? And legacy for me is leaving something behind that they don't have to struggle with. Yeah. I never came into the world with anything that was kind of left here for me. My parents have worked very hard to do that in their life, that they'll leave something for us in their time. And yeah, that's what legacy means to me. But yeah, also knowing that I've left other people outside of my culture more connected to this place. That's
Yeah,
legacy.
that's a beautiful legacy to have insights as you travel through the short time that we have on this earth. That's gorgeous. I love that so much. One of the coined sayings that we have here in Aotearoa is called mokopuna decisions. So
Mm.
mokopuna decisions being grandchildren. And it's as long as we are here today making mokopuna decisions, tomorrow's adults, tomorrow's tupuna, tomorrow's ancestors will just be able to build on what has already been created. So yeah, it's leaving the place a better place. And something I read the other day, which really resonated with me, was you are raising tupuna. So you are raising the ancestors. That's a big job, and I'm like, okay, mokopuna decisions, I get that. And for all the decisions that I'm making in the world, they are for my kids and their kids and their kids. So as long as all of the decisions that I make in this world while I'm here benefits them. That is the
Yeah.
main thing. But yeah, when I read this line that says, you are raising our ancestors, I'm like, oh, now that just hit slightly differently.
Yeah, that does. That really does. Because not
Mm.
only do we think of ourselves as, we'll be ancestors one day. For me, one of my legacies was I just want to be an elder. I want to be acknowledged as a respectful elder because I know how well respected, how much respect I have for my elders and what they've done, and to get there one day. But when you say, we are raising the ancestors of those that we're putting into, and we leaving them here behind,
Yeah.
and what we decide impacts how then they make their decisions.
Yeah. So
Love that.
beautiful legacy story. I love it. And one question that I ask just about all of my guests are, what are 3 things that you would love to share with other women growing a service-based business, especially those wanting to build a business that is aligned, that is impactful, and that is true to who they are?
1, get really clear on your values, what you value in your life personally, and then what you value or want for yourself professionally. There will be things that align and there'll be things that are a bit different. And then how do you step into both of those? Secondly, surround yourself with other women or people that are doing the thing or have done the thing, those that you can learn from, those that you can learn with, and those that you can teach that are coming behind you. 3, just love what you do. Like, just have fun. Like, don't do it if you don't love it. Like, if you do not love it and if it does not light you up, your soul on fire or your heart, find what does and do that. That's it.
And then life will be great.
That's right.
When you do what you love, life will be great.
Well, you never work a day in life you love what you do.
Yeah, right. Every day. E te tuahine, ngā mihi ki a koe. Thank you so much, Natasha, for being here, for sharing all of who you are. I know I asked some questions that, is probably not what you would get asked on every other podcast, but I appreciate you entertaining those questions and really sharing the deep richness that you bring into the world. Like, I've really appreciated listening to your journey, listening to how you approach who you are and what you do, and the mark that you're leaving on this world. It has been truly inspirational. So, ngā mihi ki a koe.
Galinya, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing this with the world.
Thank you so much for listening to Wahine. If today's kōrero resonated with you, inspired you, or made you stop and think, I'd love for you to follow the show and share it with another wahine in business. You'll find all of the links and details from this episode in the show notes. And if you're enjoying the podcast, I would really love it if you could leave a quick rating or review wherever you're listening to the podcast, because that goes a long way to helping others find this podcast and the stories we're sharing in this space. So until next time, keep building your business your way, grounded in who you are and the legacy you're here to create. The podcast music is Te Kawa Orongo by Naneko Erawata. The episode is edited by LJS Creative Services, and the show notes and blog post are written by Bellbird Writing.